खोलना है, यूट्यूब खोलो, देखो हम लोग लाइव चल चुके हैं। इसमें तो ऑन हो गया है। चेंज करो चेक करो, सीधा किया है भाई, फोन सीधा ही है। ये ट्राइपॉड ऐसा कैसे ठीक ही तो देखो, वापस बैठ जा, क्रॉस कर, अब देखो, अब ठीक है, ऊपर कर दिया। ऐसे ही होता है लाइव वॉच के, आगे जाए, इंटरनेट पूरा है यहाँ, चलेगा तब ना होता है, आगे जाए। वो सिर्फ फॉर्मेलिटी के लिए होता है, आगे जाए। देखो चल रहा है ना, देखो ये देखो कुछ वो हो रहा है क्या, वैसे चल रहा है ना एकदम। देखो देखो देखो, हाथ हम कैमरा के आगे रखा है। ठीक है चल रहा है, बस चल रहा है ना, वही हम आगे कर दिया थोड़ा सा, ठीक है। ठीक है, चलने तो ऐसे भी कोई देखने नहीं वाला है। अंजना का है, उसको उसके पास मेरा कैमरा है।
Good afternoon, everyone. As a mark of respect, please rise on your feet. We We are honored to have with us Reverend Dr. Dominic Savio, SJ Principal, Reverend Dr. Peter Arokium, SJ Vice Principal, Department of Management Studies, Department of Commerce Evening and Department of Masters of Commerce Evening, Reverend Dr. Joseph Kolendai, Vice Principal, Department of Commerce Morning, Professor Shaugata Banerjee, Dean of the Department of Management Studies, Dr. S.K. Basu, Dean of Masters of Commerce, and the Member of the Advisory Committee. Good afternoon, Reverend Dr. Dominic Savio, SJ Principal, Reverend Dr. Peter Arokium, SJ Vice Principal, Department of Management Studies, Department of Commerce Evening, Department of Masters of Commerce Evening, Reverend Dr. Joseph Kolendai, Vice Principal, Department of Commerce Morning, Professor Shaugata Banerjee, Dean of the Department of Management Studies, our esteemed speaker, Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan, our moderator, Mr. Vikas Jain, members of the Advisory Committee, faculty members, and all of the students of Xavier College, Autonomous, Kolkata. I would now like to invite the guests of honor and dignitaries to please take a seat on the stage. warmly welcome you to the Xavier's Management Society's first calendar event, X-GENESIS 2023, curated exclusively for the first year students of all the departments of St. Xavier's College Autonomous, Kolkata. X-GENESIS drove participants to demonstrate their values and strive towards achieving success. It brings us immense pride and joy to have hosted our event here on campus and welcoming first-year undergraduates to a college life full of learning and 3-day-long simulation presented a plethora of enriching rounds, critical thinking of the participants, challenged their management skills and helped them to imbibe corporate skills that will pave their future with great victory to conquer. We at St. Xavier's College believe in our vision of Nihil Ultra, which means nothing beyond, and this spirit pervaded in the event as well. The purpose of the event was to provide the students with a platform to explore their capabilities, display their potential, and prepare them for the real world. I would now like to invite Reverend Dr. Dominic Xavier, SJ Principal, St. Xavier's College Autonomous, Kolkata, to deliver the welcome address.
Very good evening to all of you. Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan, our acclaimed speaker, Mr. Jain, our moderator, Reverend Father Peter, Vice Principal, Reverend Father Joseph Kulandai, Vice Principal, Professor Sogata Banerjee, the Dean, Professor S.K. Basu, the Dean, all the faculty members, Professor Sukanya Sokel, the Professor in charge of Xavier's Management Society, and our dear students. First, I would like to express my gratitude to Mr. Krishnan and Mr. Jain for being here with us today. With us with PWC India for over 31 years. He has extensive experience working across sectors both in India and overseas. Mr. Jain is a qualified chartered accountant from Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Training in export management from the Federation of Indian Exporters Organization, Ministry of Commerce, Government of India. To be a leader, one must have a vision and a goal. Be dedicated to reaching that objective and be able to overcome obstacles along the way. It entails leading without having a lot of power, promoting positive and constructive dialogue, and exercising sound management even while under a lot of pressure. As a result of this belief, the theme Mission Impossible was chosen for X-GENESIS 23, Exemplifying Empower Emerge, which was organized by the Xavier's Management Society. The culmination of this subject, which featured a gladiatorial match between the young and modern day revolutionaries, combined reality, originality, energy, and perseverance in the perfect way. This 3-day competition included a number of, as you all know, of managerial focus to challenge the participants' creativity and reveal their genuine capabilities. Nihil Ultra, as all of us know, which translates to nothing beyond, is the ideal that we have at St. Xavier's College Autonomous, Kolkata, hold dear, and this spirit certainly permeated this event as well. Especially, I would like to congratulate the board members of Xavier's Management Society who have worked very hard, as we witnessed today and the last 3 days we have witnessed. The hard work and dedication required to organize an event of this magnitude is responsible for the success of the endeavor. I wish you all the best for your future endeavors as you wrap up your widely successful event. And especially I would like to thank the professor in charge, Professor Sukanya Sokel, who has with the students has put up this exercise for the students who have just joined. I am sure all of you have benefited from this 3-day event. There are many more events to come. One thing I can tell you, Xavier's Management Society has grown a lot. It has grown, and all of you will, those of you joined for the first time, you will be experiencing the last event, Xavier's Management Convention. The best management institutions all over India will be coming. I'm sure there are many more events to come between that, the last event, this event, and you will benefit a lot. And wish you all the best. May God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Father, for your kind words. Now, I would request Father Principal to please felicitate our speaker for the day, Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan. Thank you, Father. I would request Father Vice Principal to please felicitate our moderator for the session, Mr. Vikash Jain. I would now like to call upon Dr. Sukanya Sarkhe, the Deputy President of the Xavier's Management Society, to felicitate Father Principal. Thank you, ma'am. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Supriyo Patra, Vice Deputy President of the Xavier's Management Society, to felicitate Father Vice Principal, Department of Management Studies, Department of Commerce Evening, and Department of Masters of Commerce Evening. Thank you, sir. I would now like to call upon Professor Shaugata Banerjee, Dean of the Department of Management Studies, to felicitate Reverend Dr. Joseph Kulendai, S.J., Vice Principal, Department of Commerce, Morning. Thank you, sir. I would like to call upon the Joint Secretary of the Xavier's Management Society, Mohit Joshi, to felicitate Professor Shaugata Banerjee, Dean of the Department of Management Studies. Thank you, Mohit. I would like to call upon the Finance Head of the Society, Mohammad Tawqi Siddiqui, to felicitate Dr. S.K. Basu, Dean of the Department of Masters of Commerce, Evening. Thank you, Tawqir. I would now like to call upon the Finance Head of the Xavier's Management, Raghav Bansal, to felicitate Dr. Sukanya Sarkhe, Deputy President of the Xavier's Management Society, and Dr. Supriyo Patra, Vice Deputy President of the Xavier's Management Society. Thank you, Raghav. Now, I would like to introduce our distinguished speaker, Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan, and our moderator, Mr. Vikash Jain. Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan is the Chairperson of PWC in India. Having been with the firm for over 31 years, he has extensive experience working across sectors both in India and overseas. Mr. Sanjeev is also a part of FICCI's National Committee on Stressed Assets and is also a member of select CII subgroups, deliberating new ideas and providing insights on important areas in related party transactions. Mr. Sanjeev is also the SEBI Primary Market Advisory Committee, sharing his inputs on regulatory issues and legal framework to enable ease of doing business and drive investor interest in India. He frequently interacts with the media on various issues ranging from geopolitics, the economic outlook for India, sectoral trends, and other topics that are top of the mind for Indian and global CEOs. Mr. Sanjeev is passionate about playing a part in building a sustainable future for the society we live in and actively advocates the causes of conservation, socio-economic inclusion, and diversity. He is a certified chartered accountant and an associate member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, ICAI. Mr. Sanjeev graduated from first class in economics from the University of Delhi and remains an active and proud alum. Thank you so much, sir, for gracing our event with your presence. We are glad to have you here with us. I would now like to welcome our respected moderator for this session, Mr. Vikas Jain. Mr. Vikas Jain is a partner at B. Jain and Company Chartered Accountants and the director at Morphin Advisor Private Limited. He is a graduate in commerce from the University of Calcutta and a qualified chartered accountant from the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He has training in export management from the Federation of Indian Exporters Organization, Ministry of Commerce, Government of India. He has also acquired intensive training in personality development from McGrath's Institute of Leadership Training at Kolkata. He has served as the president of Rotary Club of Calcutta Visionaries and is also on the board as an erstwhile independent director of Interstate Oil Carrier Limited, a BSE listed company. He got elected to the Regional Council of the Eastern India Regional Council of the ICAI of the Indirect Tax Subcommittee of the Indian Chamber of Commerce and Merchants Chamber of Commerce at Kolkata. Mr. Vikas Jain has also been awarded the Best Master of Ceremony in a national convention of MILT. He has also been invited as a guest faculty to address the faculty of the prestigious University of Bardhaman on corporate governance in India, along with Vidyasagar University in Midnapur district of West Bengal on trends of commerce education in West Bengal. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. I would request everyone in the audience to rise on their feet as the dignitaries lead the session.
May take your seats in the auditorium. I would request students sitting in the two sides. You may come forward, sit here, all of you. Okay? So could you please come forward and sit here in the blank places? All students sitting in the right hand side or left hand side, come forward.
I would now request Mr. Vikas Jain and Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan to take the session forward on the topic Embracing Change in a Fast-Paced World. Hope the audience has a great enriching session.
Good evening to all present over here. Good evening, Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan. It's indeed honor and pleasure to associate with you this evening in front of a very, very encouraging crowd. And I guess a round of applause for all of you. I mean, you've been through the competition for the last 3 days at X-GENESIS'. Round of applause for all of you. So first of all, thank you very much XMS and St. Xavier's College for inviting us to this session and be amongst you. And I guess, I would have been on the other side of the stage sitting, amongst one of you. It's such an enriching audience, like the students around, all around. So it's so bubbly out here. And I'm grateful to the entire management of St. Xavier's College, the principal, vice principal, and other dean members over here. So I guess it's just time now to commence the session right earnest. Since we are a bit delayed, so I guess we'll now rush through so that you can extract the maximum out of our speaker over here. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of your questions from the floor as well, and post some interaction that we have among ourselves. I'll be inviting a couple of questions on the floor so that you can have a one-on-one with our guest speaker this evening. So I hope this format suits all of you. Yes or no? Come on. Yes. Okay, so we are there, right? So Mr. Krishnan, welcome to this evening's interaction, and the topic what we have selected, embracing change in the fast-paced world. So it's very, very contemporary and very interesting as well. Keeping in view the student faculty, the student members that we have out here, it's indeed a pleasure and welcome, to see them growing so fast. What used to happen nowadays, and now there has been a sea change, and students are flocking and taking things at a pace that is unheard of. So I'm sure this embracing changes in fast-paced world, it's a very, very appropriate and apt topic chosen this evening. So embracing change means what? I mean, this is nothing but accepting that you have to have you cannot have everything under your control. Nothing but change is permanent. So there has to be a change all along. So before we get into a real Q&A with the speaker, may I request Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan to share his thoughts and his views and his experiences to this cross-section of students on this very interesting subject for the next 5 or 7 minutes, if he can take us.
Thank you, Vikas, and good evening, everyone. And once again, I'd like to thank everybody, particularly all of you for being here, but also all the faculty for actually inviting me. Now, I'll straight away jump into the topic, and we talk about change. There's a saying which goes on to say that change is permanent, growth is optional. And I say that because over my 30 odd years at the firm, in this firm, our firm has changed drastically. Pivoted on 2 critical areas, and those have remained consistent. One is to build trust in our ecosystem, help our clients build trust in their ecosystem. And the second is to create outcomes for our clients. You might actually think that how can you do one without the other? How can you build trust if you can't think of, creating value, which actually comes by creating outcomes for your clients? And the other way to look at it also is that how can you create outcomes for your clients or consult with your clients if you're not trusted? So those two have remained constant. What has changed is the way you have delivered that. And that has changed in a very drastic way. I'll start with the brass tacks. When I started back in 1991 with the firm, we used to have physical ledgers. As with many others, I started doing accounting. I was actually an economics graduate from the Delhi University. Had very little idea of accounting. So I still remember in August of 1991, I actually went into an audit engagement in Rampur in Uttar Pradesh, and I was lifting physical ledgers. I can never forget that because one of those physical ledgers that I lifted had a creepy crawly in it, and I was scared, almost scared to that when I saw that what I had been lifting. But anyway, that's an aside. We had physical ledgers in those days. Then we started using some kind of computerization. Then a lot of accounting software came along. Today, I'm sure you hear people using enterprise-wide matrices like SAP, Oracle, some others could use Microsoft and so on and so forth. They use it for either the entire organization or some parts of the organization. And just imagine that if I with the kind of understanding and knowledge that I had when I was looking to audit a business on physical ledgers. If I have to do it today, can I do it? I can't do it. Which means I need to change. I need to upskill myself. And I think that's one of the manifestations of change. Why only me? You look at any sphere of our lives. I'm not even sure, considering the age of this audience, how many of you would have even seen a Walkman, for instance? I don't know, if there's one hand out there, maybe a few out there. I'm glad that you've seen a Walkman. Right? There used to be a cassette player which used to go in, so at least when I was growing up, to have a Walkman was very fashionable, and it was about, okay, we had something, otherwise it was just radios. Then we had, the Walkman got replaced because CDs came along, and you could hear music on CDs. Then over a period of time, Apple came along and they launched the iPod. And what really wondered as to how can so many songs be fitted into like this small device. And then of course the smartphone revolution became wider, and today of course you can do anything on the smartphone. Whether you want to listen to music or you want to listen to any other kind of podcast. So it's changed our lives in a very, very drastic way. But let me try and bring it to life with two examples. And these are examples that I quote very, very often. The first example that I like to quote for you, and I'm sure everybody knows about Netflix. I'm sure you watched Netflix today. But how did Netflix start many, many years back? Netflix many, many years back actually used to, on a subscription basis, used to send video CDs to people's homes. That's how they started. I think this is the they were in competition with another business called Blockbuster. And interestingly, there was an offer made to buy them out, and I think it was in those days about $50 million, which refused. In 8 years, Blockbuster went bust. I think it was 2010 or so, they went bust. During the same time, Netflix was continuing to reinvent itself. From just sending CDs to people's homes on a subscription basis, they focused on streaming. And today we know how big streaming services are. In fact, the amount of bandwidth that they take, I think almost 40% of the prime time bandwidth in major countries goes to Netflix. When I say prime time, it is the evening hours when people are home or whatever else, etc. goes on Netflix because people are watching whatever they are watching. So it's a question of how do you continue to reinvent yourself? Do you go the way Netflix went in terms of looking at their business model and saying, what should I change to stay relevant? Because relevance is key. Or you go the Blockbuster way, which of course they thought that they were bigger and better than Netflix. But they did not feel the need to change themselves, and they've got to where they've got to. In fact, went into insolvency, 2010. Another example I like to give you, just nearer home, right? You look at the way the startup ecosystem has come into India. I mean, we talked about more than 100 unicorns and so on and so forth in the country. But look at the traditional businesses. And I'm sure maybe as part of your work and otherwise you would have done this. Is there a traditional business in the country which has not looked at new ways of doing the same thing? Today we are talking about not just embracing technology, but embracing disruptive technologies. And of course, there's an element of whether it can be trusted or not. But today, we have AI and ML and ChatGPT and this, that, and the other. We are also trying to do our chat PWC, by the way. But that's another matter. The good point is that each one of the businesses, if you look at any business, in fact, if you look at in Calcutta itself. In Calcutta itself, you will look at, because a lot of industry was established in Calcutta. If you look at some of the businesses which were initiated in Calcutta, they themselves have been looking to reimagine the possibilities for themselves because they are trying to embrace technology. It is not that I will actually also acquire a technology business. For some of them it was initially like that. Today it is about how do I stay relevant, how do I stay competitive in the face of what's coming. Look at the financial services sector in India. I'm sure half of you transact all the time on your phones. In our days it was just, when I say in our days, when I was growing up, so certainly, for all of us, we were writing checks. Today, if you go to open a bank account and if you write you ask them for a checkbook of more than 10 leaflets, they will charge you for it. Because everything is supposed to be done on the mobile phone. So, the fintech disruption which is coming, even somebody like a State Bank of India, which initially people thought, they are so rooted to the ways of doing things, they will never be able to change. They have changed. They came up with YONO. One would have never imagined that they would do that. Growing up, my experience with State Bank of India was that they are a very reliable bank, but they are set in their ways. If they can change, you can well imagine the impact that it has on the business. And the final thing that I'll say, and I'll pause at this point in time. As a nation, we have grown. As a nation, we have grown from being a very inward-looking economy when I was growing up. Certainly. 1991, again, some of you were possibly not even born. 1991, we had the first real flavor. When, there were a series of deregulation which happened. We also devalued a currency twice. And there was a series of deregulation which happened, which in some ways made sure that businesses were trying to compete. And today we are in a situation where, because maybe of geopolitics, nobody sells India just because you don't want to go X, Y, Z, you want to come to India. It doesn't happen like that. You have to talk about what's specific about what we have done. It's absolutely tremendous what we have done on the UPI. Now you must have seen the German minister, one of the German ministers actually transacting with UPI 2 days back. The pictures are all over the press. That is the impact that an Indian innovation, public innovation, is having. And this is Indian public innovation. I want to underline the word public innovation. It's not a private innovation, it's a public innovation which is happening. So even the public sector is embracing change. So friends, I would only say this, that to me, to the question that Prakash, you asked, change is the only constant. Growth is optional. Whether we embrace change or not, it depends on that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krishnan. Those were the opening remarks and very aptly and rightfully put. And you were asking about the age of this audience actually. So they're all first year students that we understand. So maybe in the range of say 18 or 19 years, completing their teens. And they're so very fortunate to host the chairman of PWC India amongst them. So we are grateful to you. A couple of quick recap, from what Mr. Krishnan made a point. We need to be very, very adaptable and flexible. So unless, we are keeping that in tune, it really becomes very difficult to adapt to the changes. You spoke at length about, the public sector units playing a very, very deft role and important one. So by and large, we are of course keeping the private as well as the foreign sectors, but our domestically grown companies and our PSUs, they've also changed phenomenally well, keeping in present times. Okay. Well, Mr. Krishnan, one important factor that you touched upon, that information technology. Now, since these are students of management over here, XMS to be very precise, say artificial intelligence or robotics, process automation, data housing, data mining. These are some of the areas that actually will translate and transform the professionals here on, be it accountants or the grooming of these graduates into say MBAs of tomorrow or leading the large size giant companies. So let us speak your thoughts and views on these important tools of IT that is now in place that we have to live with.
I think the first thing I would say is not to fear them. I mean, I'm sure you don't fear them. I mean, maybe again I go back. I'm too much thinking about people like Akash and myself, but even for anybody else who's not embraced them yet, I think not to fear them. I think they can be huge enablers for everything. I mean, I had 2 meetings since the morning, 2 client meetings. Incidentally, both of them, passed out from this institute. I won't name them, but they told me that they actually spent a few years here. One of them showed me a dashboard about how they monitor the business. And if I look at the way the dashboard has come in, and so we were playing around with the dashboard, and we were saying, what if? Right? Now, the question also was that, okay, what if this happens, then what is the change that is going to impact, that is going to happen to my business, etc., etc. And that is a kind of static dashboard. I'm calling that a static dashboard. That is a kind of, because it allows what if a static dashboard. Today, with the advent of things like AI and others, you could create more real-time dashboards in which you can play around with any kind of information that comes your way. Now, whether that information can be trusted or not, that is another matter. That incidentally brings me to the second point. That when you talk about something like AI in particular, I think one of the critical things really is that can that information be trusted and how can you make that information trustworthy? I think one of the biggest jobs for people like us and many others is that can the information which is coming through these sources be trusted or not? Because if that information cannot be trusted, it is meaningless, it is valueless. It's just gossip. So yes, there is a huge amount of enablement and we need to be not be fearing it, but be able to embrace it. But the important fact really is that can that be trusted? And I think we are yet to prove that most of these can be trustworthy. And I think that's the second thing that I would say. Now the third one, which I also want to point out is that when you look at the entire ecosystem, today we are talking about supply chains which are very, very integrated. Today we are talking about a bunch of transitions that are happening. We are looking at a world where, so let me just back off. There are 4 transitions that I normally talk about. I talk about a supply chain transition, I talk about an energy transition, I talk about a technology transition, and I talk about a demographic transition that's happening in India. Now, when you look at each of these 4 transitions, and you will be starting your careers in times to come. When you look at these transitions, and you will be actually getting into the workforce when these 4 transitions are certainly at play. Think about how each of these technology innovations are impacting each of the 4, because none of them, if any of us think that okay, they will impact only my supply chain or energy or technology transitions, that is not going to be the case. The one thing that I would certainly ask this audience to think about is that how does it impact all these 4 transitions that India is facing at this point in time. And I can tell you that the new technology innovations, each one of them, will impact each of those 4 transitions. Maybe you will help me identify a 5th one, but that is the other piece, that don't look at it in a very micro way, look at it in a macro way. That's something which is very, very critical.
Yes, sir. So that is a very, very positive note that you've addressed these technology tools that are coming by our way. One important, very pertinent aspect is post-COVID, as to how this has affected our lives and how it is a relationship or the workplaces. So in an organization such as PWC, how exactly you have adapted to the changes and responded to these natural calamities, so to say, especially the post-COVID era?
I think the first thing was to make sure that we are responding to the needs of the people from a health and a well-being perspective. So one of the big focuses, one of the big shifts that has happened in the firm is that we never had so much time spent on people's well-being, both physical but also mental. And the amount of time that we spend getting people to talk to us about these two aspects has been one big significant shift that has happened. The second one, incidentally, which has happened is that for the first time, we are actually going more and more, we are going closer to talent. So I don't know, many of you might have seen, we actually have opened a bunch of offices in some of the relatively smaller towns, if I may call them so. I mean, Jaipur, Bhubaneswar and others. We recently opened an office in Noida, we're sort of going to Thane, we are contemplating going into Cochin and Kochi and now Ludhiana. So we are actually now trying to go near to talent. It is also in some ways working for us because COVID made sure that any corporation, even if it is, let's say, a small textile mill in Ludhiana, is looking at transformation. So in a way, by going to some of the smaller offices, we are both meeting a client there and we're meeting talent out there. Because what we clearly recognized was that a lot of talent wish to continue to stay in what they were calling their home location. They did not want to be at a base location. So I think that's a big shift that has happened. I think it's all for the good because it actually helps us harness talent right at the source. And that's a journey that we have undertaken, and I'm sure that it's just a start.
Right. So very pertinently puts them in the post-COVID era health and mental well-being of the individual classes that we're taking care of by PWC. It's a welcome move. Going forward, Mr. Krishnan, let me at this stage sound out to the entire house that of course we are waiting with a bated breath the landing of Chandrayaan-3 on the lunar surface this evening. So I'm sure we are all very excited about it, and once that happens, this will be another transformation, a change that of course the entire world is looking at to the ISRO and of course the Indian scientists actually. So let me have your thoughts on Chandrayaan-3 and a safe landing of Chandrayaan-3.
Well, I'm going to be hoping and praying with you. I think the ISRO scientists tell us that they are very confident, and I wish their word comes true. Let me just say one thing. I think this is irrespective, this is going to be a landmark moment. Irrespective of what happens over the next couple of hours, it's going to be a landmark moment. Having said that, one of the things which, having grown up over the years, I felt that we as a nation don't do enough is investment in innovation and R&D. Through various industry councils that we sit on, and in fact there are recommendations. I know that there's going to be a vote on count this year, it's not going to be a full budget, but some of the recommendations that we're making through various industry councils is to exactly say this, that we need greater incentivization for innovation and funding by the way, for both R&D and innovation. I think we have been very underway. I mean, why do a lot of students actually go overseas, and why does the best research which comes from overseas? It comes because there's a lot of funding available, whether it comes from some of the family groups or otherwise, for research in these colleges. And that's unfortunately something that we have missed. So I wish all the success to Chandrayaan, but I would also like to say in the same breath that I hope it encourages both the public sector and the private sector to invest more and more into innovation and research, without which, look at, so let me just end with an example. I mean, why do we pay a lakh of rupees for an apple? I mean, it is about the R&D and the research, the IP that got generated. We pay for a phone that works equally well, maybe 15,000 rupees, even 10,000 rupees in India. But the difference is obvious. It's this expenditure in R&D and others.
So let us open the floor for a few questions and interactions. So guys, just put your thinking caps on, and it's all for you. Whosoever would like to come forward, there could be some volunteers moving around to hand over a mic or something. It would be a pleasure to respond to the queries. Yes, please, the organizers, if you can just if the students would be interested in putting forward a few questions. Please announce your name, whosoever is speaking. So do you have a mic being circulated on the floor, or how is it done? Okay, that is it.
Good evening, sir. We're really glad that you've made some time for us out of your busy schedule. So one question I have personally is that how do you see India as a disruptor? Like you mentioned change and how change is inevitable. How do you see India play a specific role in the global business landscape?
Well, I think I mentioned the 4 transitions that India is at the forefront of. I mean, could you have imagined the amount of commitment that we have made now, for instance, to things like green hydrogen? When we talk about energy transition, the amount of commitment that India has made, for instance, to green hydrogen is a case in point. I mean, three weeks back I was in Japan and we were hosting an event for Japanese investors to look at India. And I went to meet the ministry out there. And the ministry was actually telling me that while they have been looking to import hydrogen and ammonia from Australia all this while, because of the strong pitch that the Indian government had made and a couple of private players who have actually committed a huge amount of investment have made, they are contemplating looking at India as a partner for ammonia and green hydrogen. And I mean, to me, for me it was a matter of huge pride that the Japanese ministry is saying that they would be considering India. Now again, I think we have some distance to go before we can actually enable Japan to succeed, because I think there is some way to go, and I think everybody recognizes it's a 3 to 5 year journey. But the fact is that we are actually committing that significant amount of investment, which means that this transition that the world is facing, and India clearly is at the forefront of it. You look at supply chain shifts. I mean, I don't want to talk about any particular nation or anything, because it could be +1 of anyone, right? It could be East, West, plus. I mean, everybody is talking about how India could actually be part of global supply chain, global value chain, and I think that's a case in point. The fact of the matter is, today, look at the global capability centers that exist in India. 50% of the global capability centers across the globe are currently sitting in India, which leverage the India demographic profile. And let me also tell you that these 50% GCC that are setting up in India, 50% profitability, but anywhere between 40 to 50% of the profitability of global corporations. Because the work that they're doing, whether it is on R&D, whether it is on HR, whether it is on cyber, whether it's on cloud, that work which is being done by the global capability centers that global corporations set up in India, they are causing a huge cost arbitrage for them based on competency arbitrage. It is not just cost arbitrage, it is cost arbitrage driven by competency arbitrage is causing huge amount of profitabilities to global corporations in India. And that is what makes me so sanguine, and I think that's the role that India can play even more going forward.
So, next question from the floor, please.
Very good evening, sir. I am Vansh Meshwari. So, my question for you is that, sir, you are being a sports player and a cricket enthusiast yourself. So, what would you say about the importance of having hobbies in this modern fast-paced world?
So, this is something which extremely critical. Because how do you de-stress otherwise? If you don't have a hobby, how do you de-stress? I mean, you work 16, 18 hours a day, what? Right? I mean, at the end of the day, we all have limited needs. I think the only way you can de-stress, I mean, it could simply be that you go for your morning walk, or you play a guitar, or you play a piano, or whatever else. But I think it's extremely important, and particularly for young people coming through the workforce. I think there's a lot of energy and we want to sort of change the world all the time. By all means, we should change the world, but keep some time for yourself, because I can tell you, something that I think that I should have done more of is to actually make a little bit more time for myself. Right? Yeah, we do a few things now, but I would say that in maybe years 35 to 45, one thing that I missed doing was taking up a passion. And so for instance, I can just share. I mean, I have a passion for singing, but I never gave it enough time. And now, I mean, it's never too late. But please do make time, because otherwise you don't de-stress at all. And stress, unfortunately, in corporate life, unfortunately, could be a big disabler. Let's put it there. So by all means, you should. Very critical. Make it as part of your working. Making it as part of your working hours only.
Very nicely put, sir. It's very, very pertinent, in the fast-paced world, especially keeping ourselves, having some room or some time for ourselves. That's very, very critical and vital. Yes, please, the next question. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, this is Ishita Rani going by the side. So, what are the potential risks or pitfalls that you would say of embracing change too quickly in this fast-paced modern world without proper planning?
So I think when you talk about change, I think first of all, you cannot shock the system. You can never shock the system, right? If you were to tell people today that yesterday you were working like this and tomorrow you will work like this, it will not work. So you have to phase that change out, right? And the second thing is communication. I think when you are actually looking at doing any kind of change, very important that you over-communicate. And that over-communication can only happen if the person who's driving change is very clear about what the change is. Because if you are my subject of change and I'm trying to drive change, unless I'm clear, you will ask me 20 questions that Sanjeev, why this, why not this? I need to be very, very clear about change. So whenever I have driven change, I have taken, if I have put food in, if I could think about it in 1 month, I would have possibly taken 3. Because I need to think through that each person who's going to get impacted by the shift, what is my response going to be? What are the questions? What are the insecurities that they will have? And how should I be responding to it? And do I have not just sorting you out, but sorting him out and so on and so forth? The entire ecosystem, it should make sense to the entire ecosystem. Because if one of you does not feel happy about it, the change is bound to fail. So be clear about the change that you want to drive, over communicate, and I would say don't shock the system. I think those are the 3 things. Give it some time, and I think if you do these 2 things, it always works. But most importantly, when you drive some of this change, the person who's trying to drive this change, I would strongly encourage for that person to actually go to the 3rd party or 4th party and the 5th party and get some challenge to his thinking about change. Because if I have just thought about change and okay, I must change today, I'm red, tomorrow I'm blue, that's a whim. Right? I need to think it through, I need to get it stress tested, and I should actually go to my coaches, mentors, whatever, and actually tell them that what the change is and how I've got to, because that is also very, very important. It sort of makes the change more close.
So I guess the kind of questions that are coming from the floor, Mr. Krishnan, they are indeed very, very encouraging. So people are aware as to how they are going to embrace the challenges of changes in a fast-paced world. All right, we have just time for 1 or 2 more questions on the floor. In case somebody from the other side of the floor, they would like to come forward or put forward a question, please go ahead.
Good evening, sir. We are really glad to have you here. And my question to you will be that in the recent times, we have seen that such big companies have faced quite a few recessions in the recent time, be it a pandemic, be it recessions. So how would you advise such companies to face such disruptions?
So, glad that you asked that question. As an organization, PWC is now 150 years in the country, so you can well imagine that we have lived through many disruptions and many changes over the years. But forget us. Even if you talk any other corporation, even if you talk about a startup, I think, one of the things that I've seen successful organizations do is to always have 2 or 3 people in every organization who are thinking that, okay, this is my as-is. How will I grow my as-is? Now, if my business is doing well, how will I continue to grow this at a particular point in time, at a particular rate, 10%, 15%, 20%, whatever I think is possible. But have a team of 2 or 3 or 4 people who can always challenge the ecosystem, who are actually just talking to the outside world. Let them talk to the academicians, for instance. Let them talk to scientists, for instance, in my sphere of business, and say what might change my business model. You look at the model that, for instance, some of the IT businesses face. Initially, most of the IT businesses were just basically focusing on cost arbitrage. There was a huge demand for IT resources, and people could call it home bodies or body shopping or whatever else. That was a model that initially a lot of IT businesses started off their businesses with. But over a period of time, they've changed the model. Many of them are actually saying that we do not want to be just on the implementation side, and we do not want to provide warm bodies on implementation. We want to be at the transformation side. We want to create outcomes for our clients. Now, if we have to create outcomes, there are multiple platforms that are there, and I need to embrace those platforms. You cannot do many of these things by yourself, because in this integrated world, there will be a need for you to work together with others, and I think that's another shift that one has to embrace. And the one other critical component in this whole ecosystem is that as you look at what might shift tomorrow, get more and more of your teams. Once you know that this is a disruption which is coming in, talk very openly about it. Don't let it be amongst a small few group of people, because then, I believe, at times my own success becomes the biggest hurdle to embracing change. Because I know that I'm doing this very, very well. I'm implementing very, very well. And tomorrow, if my client wants transformation, the guy who's implementing says that, okay, I'm making a lot of money just implementing ERP or whatever else. So why should I get into transformation? So let them embrace them at the point when you are convinced that there is a disruption coming right around the corner, and we need to talk about it more holistically in the organization so that people have the time to digest it. Think about what it means for the organization, think about what it means for them individually, and once that conviction has been made, then you drive change in the organization. So I would say that to be recession proof, nobody can be fully recession proof, by the way. It is about looking at every nook and corner as to what might disrupt that business and having a crack team which both has the ability to see that disruption and the ability to socialize that disruption to the wider teams.
Right. So, Mr. Krishnan, taking it forward, perhaps the last question from my side would be, how would you define the impact of a new world order, especially in the phenomenon of the war times or threats or business dominance, or new pieces of legislation being enacted every day to keep up with the pace? How do you address this situation as of now?
Well, I think one has to look at the silver lining, one has to look at the opportunity in some of these things. It's unfortunate. If you talk about disruption caused by war, it's very unfortunate as to what's happening in the region. But if you are focused, if you are in a business, and you have to think as to what will be the silver lining. So, for instance, as a nation, you all know that India has benefited because of what's happening because of the war. We're getting cheap Russian oil, we're exporting it back. Incidentally, we are refining that crude and we are sending it back to Europe and US, and that is why you see the Western countries not talking about it in any higher decibel than they otherwise would have, right? So you have to start looking at the silver lining. There is always going to be disruption. But let me also say that whenever there is disruption, whenever there is regulatory change, look at it as to what can it do for your business. I talked about trust. Any of the regulatory changes that happen, since again I said on so many of these committees, etc., when some market participants say that, oh, this is too much work, related party too much work, why should we give so much information? The ask that I have from them most of the time is that if you do that, you will have a reason to go to the analysts and tell them that, I do 5 kinds of transactions. I am very transparently disclosing each one of them. And yet, this is what my numbers are, this is what my profitability is. The value that the market will give you for being trustworthy is enormous. And I'll leave you with this final one, that today, I'm sure you would have been speaking about sustainability and ESG and so on and so forth. Friends, let me just tell you that any company, each and every company which has embraced ESG, they are currently valued anywhere between 9 to 13% higher than a similar company in that business which has not embraced ESG at this point in time. And that is why I'm saying that don't fear any regulation, don't fear any disruption. In some ways, ride on it, there is going to be value coming right across the pond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Krishnan. I think this was perhaps one of the very, very enriching and enchanting session. It was great interacting with an iconic figure such as you. It was entirely my pleasure. And I guess, friends, there are a lot of key takeaways from the interactions that we had with Mr. Krishnan. So you are going to be the stepping stone, for the nation's upbringing for tomorrow. And these are some of the pivotal thoughts that Mr. Krishnan has shared with you. Indeed, very, very grateful to Xavier's Management Society for having invited me as well as Mr. Krishnan before this very, very interesting audience. It's I can go on for ages together, but all good things necessarily have to come to an end. So perhaps we'll have to apply the break. Time, of course, is a constraint. So now I pass on the baton to Ms. Paridhi Jain to take it forward from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. Good evening to everyone present. As we conclude this session, I would like to thank our esteemed speaker, Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan, for providing such an insightful session to enlighten the young minds. Engaging with you in person was indeed an enriching experience for each one of us. We sincerely appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today for such an inspirational session. Sir, your knowledge will be both beneficial and motivating to our audience. I would also like to express our heartfelt gratitude to our respected moderator, Mr. Vikas Jain, for the invaluable contribution and smooth functioning of today's session. Thank you so much for being a part of our day. Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Basuli Gupta, Department of Management Studies, to deliver the vote of thanks.
A very good evening to Father Principal, for Vice Principal, our esteemed speaker, moderator for the day, members of the advisory committee, respected professor, faculty members, and all my dear students. X-GENESIS'23 aimed at providing the first-year undergraduates a platform to explore their capabilities, display their potential, and ultimately guide them towards success. This event would not have been possible without the constant guidance and support of Father Principal, Reverend Dr. Dominic Xavier S.J., Father Vice Principal, Reverend Dr. Peter Arokiam S.J., Dr. Shukanya Sarkis, Deputy President of the Xavier's Management Society, and Dr. Shubhra Patro, Deputy Vice President of the Xavier's Management Society. I would like to extend my appreciation to the Xavier's Management Society for the constantly evolving as a society and setting up new benchmark every time. I wish the society all the very best for their future endeavors and hope they reach greater heights. Lastly, I would like to thank each one of you present here for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Jain, Mr. Krishna, I had a humble request. Could the board please get a picture with you before you leave? Thank you so much.
अबे गाइस गाइस ये चल रहा है इशिता वाह
session. I would like to request Father Peter Arokium to please felicitate and provide a speaker in the moderator with a token for appreciation. I would like to call upon Professor Shaugata Banerjee, Dean of the Department of Management Studies, to please come up on stage. It was an indeed pleasure to have you amongst us today. I request everybody in the auditorium to maintain decorum as the closing ceremony will start shortly. We would like to present in front of you a video showing snippets of our highly successful event, X-GENESIS'23. We will be starting with the closing ceremony shortly, so I would request everyone to please maintain the decorum of the auditorium while we wait for Father Vice Principal to grace us with his presence. I request everyone to please maintain the I would request everyone to please maintain the decorum of the auditorium end of today's speaker session, we will now move towards the closing ceremony of our first calendar event, X-GENESIS'23, Exemplify, Empower, Emerge. I would like to call upon Father Vice Principal to say a few words and announce the winners of X-GENESIS'23.
Good evening, students. First of all, I would like to thank all of you for one particular reason. It's not just for you have assembled here, but almost all the Indians throughout the world are moving towards the TV or the various screens for the landing of Chandrayaan-3, and you are here. It's a great sacrifice. So I salute you first for that. We try to finish it as early as possible. I have shared the link with the CR so that you can share it. You can, as you move home itself, you can keep watching. And we say a small prayer. That's my humble request to all of you. We try to finish it at the earliest. Student just. Good evening, dignitaries, distinguished faculty and staff members and members of the advisory committee participants and my dear beloved students. Can I have your attention, please? I think you can, because you are also good. X-GENESIS is an event designed specifically for the first year college students and serves as a stepping stone into the uncertainties of the corporate world, as well as act as a mentor to help them safely and professionally navigate their college journey full of learning and beautiful experiences. Throughout the course of this 3-day simulation, students have numerous opportunities to demonstrate their talents. The rounds assess the students' business knowledge while also developing critical skill like time management, teamwork, communication and business knowledge, while also developing their personal life management, problem solving, position them for a managerial future. The Society's first event of the calendar year witnessed participation from first year students from all the departments with such enthusiasm, forward, involvement and devotion. Thanks to all of them. This year, we had the privilege of having two acclaimed speakers, Mr. Richard Lobo, the Executive Vice President of Infosys, and just before, we had Mr. Sanjeev Krishnan, Chairperson of PWC India, who captivated all of you with his motivational words, fueled by their unwavering desire to fulfill their responsibility to society. Together, everyone are going to work as a team. The movement you consider already shown how they have, they have taken away like Prabhupada has shown that. So you need to be part of the team, not only just this team, what I mean. In your future, wherever you are going to be part of a team. You will achieve the work that they are doing, especially for organizing this event. So, students who are so engaged, committed, enthusiastic about the operations of this organization. I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Xavier Management Society's staff, advisors, or the main pillars we call it, Buchanan Circle and Dr. along with the Management Society's Joint Secretaries Paridhi Jain and Mohit Joshi, as well as the whole board, whose direction and leadership have helped the organization achieve new heights of its new standards. I would also like to appreciate the working committee members whose incessant efforts and determination have resulted in this event. I also want to express my gratitude to all of the attendees for their enthusiasm that regardless of the outcome of the event, after the winners are going to be declared, we must keep in mind both success and failure are part of life,